Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Money Truth Moments with our very own money expert, our very own Judy Kopenbarger. How are you this morning?
I am awesome, Carlos. It's nice to see you. How you doing on this fine rainy day?
I love the rain. So to me, it just gives you a chance to catch up on things, gives you a chance to reflect, right? Uh, Gives me a chance to really look forward to watching our show. And I'm sure most of our users hopefully are snuggled in, having some coffee and just getting ready to enjoy today's episode.
Sounds like a
How about
great
you?
plan. Oh, I love the rain. Well, we have a farm. So the flowers are happy, the vegetables are happy, the trees are smiling. I love it. It's so refreshing.
Awesome. And folks, if you're just joining us today for the first time, welcome. Please make sure you follow Judy at judykopenbarger.today for all relevant financial issues and other things that come up also from questions from yourself, the audience as well too. So because we've been talking about financial planning for future generations, we've decided to add a part 3 to this series. So if you didn't get a chance to watch the last couple of weeks, please make sure you go back and watch part 1 and part 2. But what do you say we get started? And let's start maybe with a little review of what we talked about so far.
Yeah, we've been talking about generational wealth for the last couple of weeks, and that's a big one. Especially for folks that have been around a little while, they've done well, they've been saving, they've got their retirement, socked away. They're on track. They're like, well, what's more than that? What's left to that? What kind of a life print do I want to leave? What am I going to do with all this? And so I think a lot of people are really looking for purpose and meaning. And I think COVID, that period of time, that time warp that we had, I think was really, not all bad. I think some good things came out of it. People prepare better now. They're financially savvy now. A lot of people that were living where they didn't really want to live, doing a job they didn't really want to do, it was a kind of an upset to change that up. And I think people now are looking for work that has more meaning, family time that has more meaning, causes that they care about. And that's what it's all about. Money is just a tool. It helps us get where we want to go, to be with the people that we want to be with, and do life the way we see fit. And the more money you have, the more tools you have to affect those things. So when we get to the end of our life and all that money is still sitting there on the dining room table, it's all piled up in the bank somewhere, then what? And so we've been answering those questions the last couple of weeks with real stories from real clients and real people. Oh, and there goes the phone. It's live. We're live. So it's going to go straight to the answering machine. That's my mom's landline. At 94, it's hard to teach technology to some people. So we still have a landline that rings when it's gonna. So that's what we've been doing. Talk about generational. In our house, we've got 4 generations now, which is awesome here on our farm. But it's really about, what is it for? Finding that purpose in all this pile of money and all this wealth accumulation. And part of it is earning it and growing it. More importantly, how do you sustain it? How do you keep it from imploding when it gets to the next generation? And that might be worth a conversation as well.
So one thing that we talked about, we've always talked about the different generations. I'm glad you're bringing that up too, because one of the things that's come up for this third part of the series is we're talking about families, right? We're talking about planning for those future generations. So what advice, you've had a fantastic career, you've helped out so many people. But what advice do you have for like families that are just starting to plan for their financial future, for their children, or even those folks that are, for their grandchildren, right? They're getting to that age where they want to plan also for their grandkids too.
That is such a great question. And I think like anything that you're planning for, you start with the end in mind. If you start taking classes in college, you don't focus on the class you're taking, the general education classes you're taking. You focus on the graduation day, right? So
Yeah.
when you get married or you get engaged and you're thinking about getting married, you don't think about just that day. You think about the end in mind. What's our life going to be like? Are we going to have a family? Where will we live? How will we afford the things that we want to create in our lifestyle? So you have the end in mind. And this kind of planning is the same. So you imagine your life 20, 50, 80 years from now, your family, you might not be in it anymore at that point, right? But you imagine what your money can do for those future generations. And you picture that, and then you work backwards. So if you want to have a legacy of education, for example, you can fund that and make sure that your grandkids and their kids and maybe even their kids will have an education, or they'll all have enough money to get into a nice home and not have to worry about housing or living in a zip code that is not desirable. Maybe it's sports or music or other faith-based causes, anything that you care about that you want to make sure is afforded and that your family carries on that torch, that legacy. You can fund that. And you can start simple. You can start small. And we could talk about some tools that you could use for that. But it starts with, where do I want the end to be? What is the goal? What is the outcome that we want for our family? If you haven't created a mission statement for your family, you can do that with even littles. If you got little kids, right? What is our family about? Are we about fun? Are we about making a difference in the community? Are we about being together and connected and supporting each other? What are the things that are important as values in our family? And you put that together in a mission statement or a family constitution. We talked a little bit about some of the details in that in one of our prior episodes. So many things you can do. You just have to start with the why. Why do we want money? And why do we want the money not to go away for future generations? What is it for?
So let's. I love how you brought everything together, and I'm actually trying to look at. There's a lot of folks jumping in, giving you props for great stuff, great information. I also want to make sure, folks, that if you're not following Judy, please do so at judycopenbarger.today. And if you have questions, more particular to what we're currently discussing or future shows, please make sure that you share that also with us so Judy can address it as well too. So moving on from making sure that our families are taken care of, making sure that our grandkids, the littles are taken care of. So now I'm going to change it to more of a little bit of a darker question. And when I mean darker questions, I'm going to talk about the T word in Uncle Sam, which means taxes, right?
Yeah.
So how do tax consideration factors into this multi-generational financial planning?
Yeah, that's a big one. And that goes to the preserving wealth, right? Because you can grow a lot of wealth, but if half or more is going to go away to taxes, and there are several taxes that might apply to someone as you pass away and pass your wealth on to the next generation. There's estate tax that might apply. There's gift tax that might apply. They go together. There's property tax. You have folks here on the West Coast. They maybe grandma and grandpa bought their Huntington Beach property for $15,000 50, 60 years ago. Now it's worth 2 million or 3 million. That's a big step up. And in California, we have a nasty tax that it's very hard to preserve the tax basis now for your children, to leave property to children. In some cases, you can't at all. So hopefully those laws will change. But you want to leave what you can to your children with is at least a mitigated tax. It might not be tax free, although with good planning it can be. We can zero it out, but sometimes taxes will apply. At least let's get it down where it's manageable and they don't have to sell the assets to cover the tax. And I've worked with families that had poor estate planning where that happened. It's like our cash cow we have to sell now because the taxes are due 9 months after grandpa died, right? Terrible. So there are things that you can do with trusts, things that you can do with family limited partnerships, with life insurance products, with annuities. There are all kinds of financial tools and legal tools that you can use to preserve the wealth. So a lot of it is about how things are titled and how they're held legally, how the tax people, Sam, right? How they view the asset and whether, they're going to be able to get their hands on it. So a lot of things you can do without going into a lot of detail. That's probably your short list. Estate planning, different kinds of trusts, irrevocable trusts. There are many kinds of asset replacement or asset protection trusts that you could put together. And, for a lot of people, if you say trust, people are thinking a revocable living trust. Like I want to leave everything to my family and I don't want to go through the probate process. That's a very basic kind of plain vanilla way to do that. And it works. It works to streamline the process and to save the hassle factor and the delays and the costs, honestly, of probate and having the court supervise all that. But there are trusts that go beyond revocable living trust planning that can mitigate or eliminate estate taxes. There's so many things that you can do, provisions you could put into these trust contracts that can zero all that out. So I encourage you to visit with an estate planning attorney that knows about that, or a tax attorney, or both, that knows all about those things. A good financial advisor or a CFP, that's a certified financial planner, will be familiar with the tools that you can use, whether it's annuities or life insurance products. The nice thing about life insurance is you can pay a premium during your lifetime, pennies on the dollar, and then that death benefit will be paid to the next generations, and that goes tax free for the most part, if not the whole part. Amazing. So there are things that you can do, investing a little bit now to have a lot later for your family. But again, you got to start with, what's it for? Is it worth it to me to do that? How do I sustain it? Make sure it doesn't implode or poof. The poof factor. Where'd it go? So we want to make sure that it's sustainable for that purpose. And then we all row together and get a good planner and get that done.
Awesome. And I can see folks coming in also. Folks, if you're just joining us, please make sure you watch the beginning of the episode. This is part 3 of financial planning for future generations. Please make sure you watch the previous 2 weeks for part 1 and part 2. There's a great content and a lot of discussion from Judy about how to make sure that we tackle this in the proper way. You mentioned a little earlier, we're talking about talking to our kids, right? Talking to the littles. So what would be your best advice? In what ways do we suggest that we educate our kids about wealth management right from an early age?
Oh, this question is close to my heart. We raised 5 children, and now we're working on the next generation. And, there wasn't really good information out there to teach kids about money. So I had to create it. So I used to, back when we sold books and tapes in the back of the room at the end of a speech, I did that a lot. And so I've got books out there, and then it was DVDs and CDs, and now everything is just digital and online. How do you help kids learn early? And it's just like anything else that becomes a value system to you. We have an opportunity with little kids for them to believe that's just how the world is. Like at our house, everybody got up and practiced their musical instruments in the morning before school. They didn't know until like junior high that not everybody did that. In the afternoons and the evenings, we would do our sports training. We played soccer and we did t-ball. We did all that stuff. And we ended up with some athletes at our house. But from little, we were at the fields working and helping them, kick with your left foot, now kick with your right foot, throw with your right hand, now throw with your left hand. And they just thought that's what we do. And we did it to keep them active and give them some skill sets, but it's just what we did. So the same thing can happen with financial strategies, helping these littles become financially responsible. So even when they're tiny and you go to the grocery store, don't leave them at home. Take them with you, maybe one at a time. If you have a litter, just take one at a time and show them, we could buy this can of soup, or we could buy this can of soup. This one's $2. This one's $4. Which one should we buy? Why? Right? Have conversations about that. It will help them learn later how to spend money well if you talk it through. They don't just assimilate and learn that. They have to figure it out. So they can either learn in college or when they get their first job the hard way, or you can teach them while they're children. So you can help them shop. By grade school, they can already have their own little Roth IRA, maybe not little. They can have their own investment account. And so when the statements come, you print it out, paper, I know, but you print it out and you show them, you have these mutual funds, you have these stocks, you have these bonds. This is how it works. This is how we bought it at this price. And now the value is higher. Last statement, it was lower. Now it's higher. That's great. And this is how we're rounding out your portfolio. They can do that by 3rd grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, definitely by junior high, and manage their own money and watch it grow. Then they don't have to make mistakes later because everybody's going to come at them with great deals, and whatever TikTok's talking about or whatever their friends in the dorm are doing. Right. And they're going to go cyber currencies, crazy stuff. Just teach them early. Show them what you're doing. For example, when the water bill comes, when the power bill comes, look, last year we spent this much on our electric bill in December. This month we spent this much. We spent less than last year. That's good. If we spend less than last year and we're still warm and the lights are still on and we're doing our life, that's more money that's available to grow wealth or do the things that we want to do in our lifestyle. So you talk through these things. They don't just learn. And if they do learn out in the world, it's probably not information that you can control or would want them to have. So model for them, talk about money, share your experiences, mistakes that you've made when you were younger, share what worked, when when you got it all figured out. So
Mhm.
those are things that you can do with kids, even from little. If they're young adults, talk to them about, the cost of buying a car. It's not just the sticker price. There's the registration and there's the gas and the upkeep and well, maybe they plug it in, but then there's the cost of the power. But there's going to be additional costs when you make a major purchase. When they get their first apartment, now they're responsible for the curtains and the garbage disposal and their furniture. So you can't just peek into an apartment, you get your first place, yay, I made it. 90% of your income goes to the rent. Now, how are you going to pay your electric bill or get a coffee table, right? So all of those things you talk through, you work with them from little all the way up, and you can educate them along the way. There's a lot of good books out there, a lot of really good principal apps, that teach you how to do budgeting, how to do spending. And I think one of the best resources, honestly, is the stuff that I built, because that was built out of lack. It was built out of there's nothing tangible that my kids can actually learn, and my clients' kids can actually learn from and practice. So the templates, the outlines, the step-by-step, how do I do it at my house? The answers to that is right here on judykotenberger.today.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask you I'm going to see if you can squeeze these two questions into one, because I know we're almost running out of time. But I also want to follow up with asking you, like, not every family is created equally, right? Not every family has this amount of wealth and so forth. So I want you to talk a little bit about how can families with a small to medium amount of wealth effectively plan for their financial future for their descendants, right? You talked a little bit about that. And part two of that is maybe touch on some common pitfalls or mistakes families make when they're planning for their financial future.
Yeah, I think the mistake, I'll start with that one. The mistake is people don't start now. It's like, well, I can't do what I want to do all the way, so I'm not going to do anything. That's a mistake. And that's just that kind of what do they call it? Analysis paralysis. Well, I'll wait till I figure it all out or get a really great plan to do something. I think what does work, even if you have modest means, is, every month you pay everybody. You pay your cell phone bill, and you pay your housing bill, and you pay the gas, and you pay the groceries, you pay all the stuff. Put yourself on the list. So pay yourself for the goals that you have in the short term, pay yourself for the goals you have in the long term, like retirement. And that's easy, because if you have a job with a 401k or an IRA, you put it in every month, you never miss it. But what if you also had a category for legacy, a category for the next generation? And every month there's $50 or $500 or $5,000 that goes to the next generation, because you have that why. You have that big purpose, that gap that you want to fill. And maybe it goes into a life premium, a life insurance premium. Maybe it goes into an annuity. Maybe it goes into a long-term portfolio that's just earmarked for the grandkids, or for education, or for the future, right? Or for the faith-based causes that you have. Maybe you want to make your own foundation and make a difference somewhere in the world out there. So if you start little, it could be $50 or $100 a month, but instead of it going in the savings with everything else, it's earmarked for the next generations, or call it legacy, or call it nest egg, or whatever you want to call it. But it's for the long-term generation. You won't use it, but you will choose how it will be used in future years.
Awesome. And with that said, I'm happy to report that we're almost at the end of the show, and you know what that means. Made it just in time for our Money Truth Challenge. So can't wait to hear this one.
Here's the challenge. I think two things will make it very easy. I always want our time to be well spent, where you didn't just, get entertained or learn a thing or two. You actually practice, and it makes a difference for you and your family at your house. So, two-part challenge today. The first one is to think about your legacy. What is the end game? Is it 20 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now? And I know families that have constitutions that are 500-year constitutions. Ours is over 100 at this point. So what are we going to do in future years to make sure that the causes that we care about, the impact we want to have, is funded? So you could think about that. It's either 20 years, 50 years, or 100 years. Pick one. And then what do we want that to look like? Is there a sum of money? Is there a bucket of money that is used in a certain way? And what is the value you want to put on that? Is it for mission trips? Is it for music lessons? Is it for private school tuition? What is it that you want to make sure is funded for your kids? What is that? That's the first thing. The second thing is, where's the gap? What's one thing, maybe two, if you want to challenge yourself, one thing that you can do to help fill the gap. Is it look into some legacy tool, financial tool? Is it get a hold of an estate planning attorney to update your trust or to take your estate planning to the next level to provide for legacy? What one thing can you do to get to the next level, fill the gap, and make sure that what you're growing is sustainable for the next generations? That's your challenge.
All right, folks, and you heard the challenge. Please make sure if you have any questions, let us know. We'd love to address it here on the show. And also remember that judykopenbarger.today is a website where you can get all of our contact information, all of our social media as well. And as always, we're here Monday. Monday. Here we go. Tuesday, 8 a.m. and replay on Thursdays at 8 a.m. So with that said, any last parting words, Judy?
Just make it a great week. Enjoy the weather, whatever it is at your place, and make it a great week.
Awesome. All right. Until next week, folks. Thanks for joining us.